watching Day or Night X. X is for exotics, and this is a companion video to a video I just did called Tarantula Curiosity, a Q&A session. It was questions sent in by YouTuber under the name of Countless Colors, and it was all based on general questions ranging from hairs, molds, general things that a beginner would ask. Now, I get questions all the time in the comment sections, and a lot of them are always about the same type of umbrella type deal, right? Where it's just, basic care information, which they can pretty much get anywhere. But every once in a while, I get very, very, very specific questions, just like Countless Colors asked in the last video, and follow-up questions came after that, and these are my follow-up answers. Now, in this podcast, I'm not just going to be answering the questions like I did in the other one. That's why this is a podcast and not so much of a video. So excuse me if there's no presentation here, really. It's just something for you to basically just turn off and listen to if you're a beginner, because I'm going to go through a whole wide range of things that should cover most of specific questions. But really, there's only one answer that I could give to you that will answer all your questions, and I will give you that in a moment. Just stay tuned. So let's get into just general thoughts. This is geared towards a beginner. If you're not a beginner, this video is going to bore you to sleep. So I encourage you, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, go check out my channel and my playlist, and check out some of the other videos that I did. If you want to see something more interesting or something presented, in a way where it's an actual tarantula video, just go to my channel and check out the playlist. But this is for beginners, and it's just a little bit of a loose talk. First of all, if you don't know anything about me, I used to be, just like a lot of people are who do not understand tarantulas, I used to be the type of person who literally had nightmares about tarantulas my entire life. Not just tarantulas, spiders in general, and snakes. And the snake thing is a little weird, though, because I did love snakes when I was growing up, but I live in St. Louis, Missouri. My snake experience were really reduced to garter snakes, and because of it's Missouri, so that's the snakes that we saw the most. So it wasn't until I got older I somehow just kind of fell into this weird zone of being afraid of snakes. I don't know what it was about, because I've always kept reptiles. I'm not a critter hater or anything. I just, for whatever reason, I just got into this fear of snakes. And then in my mid-20s, or early 20s actually, I started getting curious about them, and that led to me researching them more. And now snakes are literally my favorite animal on the planet, followed by tarantulas. The tarantulas and snakes are my two favorite animals. And which is funny, because I was afraid of tarantulas and very curious about snakes, and they both end up something that I enjoy most as far as animal goes. But tarantulas in particular, I remember the first night I had one, and it was, I could barely sleep. I had that deep of a fear for them. But I realized, even though I did a ton of research, I had a buddy who had a tarantula for years before I got mine. So I knew what I was getting myself into. I even got the exact same one he had. One of the ones he had, just to make sure I knew exactly what to expect. And I think as a beginner, that's where you should start. You should start with that place of learning as much as you can about them. And if you want to know certain things, like there's certain things I always tell people, one of the questions I get all the time is, mannerisms, how do they act around you? And I would tell them, it's more so as how you act around them. You have to turn it around. So it's not so much how they're acting around me, it's how I'm acting around them, because I have a much more bigger influence over their mannerisms than I believe that they do. Meaning, if I put them in the wrong type of enclosure, they're going to have a certain way that they act. If I don't have the humidity right, if I don't have the right substrate, if I don't have the temperature right, the ambient room temperature right, if I'm handling them too much, I'm not feeding them enough, I'm feeding them too much, I'm letting other people do this around them, or I'm spraying this in the room. There's a lot of things you can do to affect them. There's only so much they can do to affect you. So mannerism-wise, they really particularly do not give a shit if you're in the room with them. I think that's another thing that freaks people out, is that they think, big spider, scary spider, I see them in horror movies. If I'm in the room with it, I would say 9 times out of 10, that animal wants to hurt me. And that is about as false of a statement as saying that the moon is pink. It's not true. Most spiders and tarantulas are not coming at you. And I say most, meaning damn near all of them. Now, there are instances where it may look like they're coming at you. And that's another thing I always tell people, is that these are animals. They're very small. And I've said this in the Tarantula Curiosity video. Again, if you want that video, the information in that video, go in the link, the description below. I said in that video that they're not in a position of to come at you. That'd be like you trying to attack a lion or a bear. Just walking up to it and just, would you honestly run towards a bear and try to attack it? Would you be swimming in the water and swim towards a shark to attack it? That tarantula is not coming after you. If they do bolt and happens to be in your direction, it's not intentional. It's like just think about this. The largest tarantula on the planet can barely get over a foot long. And relatively speaking, that's not very big for an animal. I mean, if you think about it, I said in the other video that there are literally lizards and fish and birds that are so much bigger than a tarantula that, relatively speaking, on the food chain of size in the animal kingdom, tarantulas on the very low end of that. They do not get very big, relatively speaking. Yes, for their size and their, quote unquote, creepiness factors. You have an animal with 8 legs, all of his eyeballs on top of his head, which is also its body, and it doesn't shed its skin like a snake. It actually removes its skin and becomes a completely different animal. That is an intimidating thought and something of nightmares if you can conjure it up in your mind that way. But in reality, what they are is no different than fish or a bird or anything else in animal kingdom. You just happen to know more about fish. You happen to know more about birds. It seems as if they don't hurt you if you're out walking about. But I can tell you right now, I've been attacked more birds than I ever have from a snake or a tarantula. There have been a lot. People love dogs and cats. I've been bitten by more dogs and cats than I care to count. It's just no harm has ever been done to me from a snake intentionally. I have intentionally been harmed by mammals, and I think people forget about that. You walk, just think about this when you're a kid. How many times in the summertime you go out and you're playing and some random dog got loose and it's literally chasing you, and if it catches you, you're probably getting bitten. That's a lot scarier because that dog is either half your size or your size, depending on how old you were. So I think you have to get your mindset around these animals. Tarantulas are arachnids. They have a purpose in life just like everyone else, and I don't think people understand their purpose, and that's another reason why I think they have a bad rap. These are some of the most adaptive species that have ever lived on this planet. They have such a diverse range of species, and each genus is specific, and they cover the entire planet. I think outside of Antarctica. I think you have to put your mindset in the realm of the animal kingdom instead of thinking of it as just the spider. If you can wrap your mind off, what is the purpose of fish? What is the purpose of dogs and cats? Just think about it. Now ask yourself the same question. What is the purpose of a tarantula? Now, I'm not going to answer that for you. That's for each individual to answer for themselves. I personally believe they're no different than humans. We are on this planet. We are here to reproduce. We are supposed to have sex to reproduce. That is the whole point of having sex organs and things like that. We build houses and homes. They dig and burrow and build trees out of webs. There's no difference in that. Their housing is no different than your housing. They're building the house to stay safe and warm and out of the elements, and that's exactly what human beings do. They run from danger, which is what a lot of human beings do. And for their size, people might want to talk about intelligence. Intelligence in a tarantula can't be dictated by just saying it's dumb. It just sits there. What we call them pet rocks. What is the difference than a tarantula who is sitting still most of the time than a bearded dragon who is sitting still most of the time? But people will tell you that the bearded dragon is far more intelligent, right? In the end, I have a bearded dragon. I have tarantulas. The level of intelligence between the two is no different than the difference between man and primate. We are not that much more intelligent than an ape. We may think that we are, but we're not. It's closer than what you think. The human brain hasn't even been completely explored yet by scientists. Neither is the body. We all live in our bodies, but we do not understand our bodies at all. Our bodies just do things. You're not making your heart beat. It's just beating on its own. Your eyes are not focusing on things, with you thinking of it. You just see everything. And I think when you take that and apply that to the animal kingdom, and in particular, we're talking about tarantulas here, the way I try to figure them out is I don't really need to understand their purpose in life. I'm here to observe, and if I'm raising them up, I'm here to care for them. And my enjoyment out of them is really just observing their behavior, experiencing what it's like to see a tarantula go from being a spiderling to, an animal that can live longer than probably I'll be here on the earth still. Some of them live to be very old. So you get to see a whole range of things that you would not be able to experience if you didn't have one. The molting process itself is just a unique process. Snakes shed their skin. Leopard geckos shed. Bearded dragons shed. Tarantulas don't shed. And I think a lot of people look at it as like he shed his skin. That's not a shed. It's called molting. And it is such a unique experience because it's almost like the tarantula is giving birth to its new self. It literally looks like birth because of what they're going through the whole process. And the process takes a long time, just like a woman giving birth in labor. Some of these molting sessions, depending on the size, can last for hours and hours, and some can last almost a day. I've had, and in fact, my first tarantula, the one that you're seeing in this video, her name's Queen. She's a Grammostola porteri, the Chilean rose. What you're seeing on the screen, that tarantula, the first few months I had her, she molted. And it took her almost 24 hours. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing at the time. I shouldn't say I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what to expect. And I observed this thing, and it was one of the most unique experiences I've ever had in my entire life, witnessing that for the first time, because you're freaking out because you're looking at this animal just literally push its old skin off, and then you're looking at a completely new animal. It's almost like the prior self of it is gone, and this is the new version. But it's still the same animal, and it's just a unique experience. It's something that I think helps with trying to understand them, because they're not like every other animal on the planet. And I think that's what makes them so interesting. If they were like every other animal, then there'd be no reason for us to talk about them or to keep them. You have to understand just how unique they are. And that will get you in the realm of curiosity. And then that curiosity will lead you to what I call the cure for every question that every person has ever asked me. I've always gone back to this basic. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this answer, but it is the truest answer I can give you. If you are curious enough to watch videos, if you're curious enough to ask questions, if you're curious enough to the point where you're thinking about them more than you think you should have ever been thinking about them, like it's surprising you that you're thinking about them. You've seen a few videos and you keep going back to looking at them. You find yourself, when you go see something, you start liking spiderweb type icons and stuff and things of, clothing with whatever. You find yourself getting to the point where spiders are starting to be something that you like. Then I think at that point in time, for you to get all the answers you ever need, go get yourself a tarantula. And I've said this so much to people. Get yourself the animal you see on this screen. That is a Grammostola porteri. It is at tops $20. If you go to a reptile expo, you can probably get a good juvie for $5 to $10. Very inexpensive. So it's not going to cost you any money. Setup is very simple. It's not going to take up a lot of space. There is no drawback to getting it other than the fact that whoever you're around, now it's your responsibility to educate them on that animal. And it's your responsibility to care for them. And it's your responsibility to make sure if it's not working out for you, to hand it over to another experienced keeper or to donate it to someone who knows what they're doing. And that's pretty much the extent of the experience. Either you're going to love the experience and there's a way out for you because, you're either going to keep that tarantula or you're going to add more, which a lot of us do. because they do become addicting. You want to, it's like, okay, I learned about this genus. Now I want to learn about this genus and I want that species. It is very easy to get drawn into these animals, and you will not know that until you actually own one. Until you actually own one, I could tell you how it feels for me, how the hairs feel, and to answer a lot of people's questions, do the hairs, the hairs are getting everywhere anyway, all of the enclosures, so the hairs are there. They don't really, just like people cannot help from dropping hairs from their heads, when they brush them or whatever. If a tarantula brushes up against something, the hairs are getting everywhere. So you're going to have to experience that. You have to experience the hairs get inside of your skin. Even though you can't feel them. I know a lot of people say, because this is another question I got from Countless Colors. This is your answer to that. People do feel hairs going into their skins, but you got to understand, this is not, when a tarantula kicks hairs, there's a lot of hairs, and most of them you can't even see it. So I don't feel anything when they're on my hands or anything. I always feel when something is going to, once it starts to get too irritated and my skin start pussing up, then I realize, oh shit, I don't touch your FaceTime. Go wash your hands 1,000 times, because you can't see them. And no, they're not hurt. People always equate tarantula hairs almost to like tree pine stubs or something like you would get like stabbed like pin needles, or like Countless Colors, you said, and Countless Colors, again, if you guys don't know who this person is, the video I made prior was all based on Countless Colors questions. So I keep referring to Countless for the reason that some of the follow-up questions are in this commentary. But no, it does not feel like a cactus sting. It feels like nothing. I always get a tingling sensation, like something's on your skin. It's hard to explain it. And again, that's why I say, if you really want to experience it, get yourself a tarantula, because that's the best way to experience and answer all your questions. I thought I had researched everything about tarantulas, and I do recommend the Tarantulas Keeper's Guide. The complete Tarantula Keeper's Guide was my tarantula Bible, and I ended up passing it on once I got all the knowledge I need. Now it's all in my head, and everything I get from this point on is going to be through experience. But I passed that book on to my buddy Boxing Boa, Jay, and that's pretty much how I look at this community. It's like you're inhaling all the information you can get from experiencing the animal. Then you're passing that knowledge on to the next person, and you're going to trust that person to carry that baton to the next person. So I would say, for educational reasons why you should get one, that's more of a reason than anything, just to educate yourself. Because if you're that curious, the only way you're going to know how to figure out these animals is to do it yourself. And if you can't, then even if I could explain it as perfectly as I think I possibly can do it, you still won't know what it feels like. Just like if you were an astronaut, they can come back and tell you what it's like to be in outer Earth's orbit, but until you actually do it yourself, you really just don't know. And people tell you, what does it feel like to be, have your leg broken? And you could, but you won't know until you break your leg. It's just that type of deal. Women giving birth, people can tell you about it, but until you do it yourself, how do you know? I love tattoos, and I can tell people what it feels like, but until you get a tattoo done, you don't know. And it's the same thing with the tarantula. I encourage people to get them for themselves, and not get them because it's cool. Get them because you're curious, because you want to know everything about them and what they're all about. These animals are so unique and so complex at the same time as they are simple at the same time. It just makes for a whole range of all the makings of a good animal to keep, especially if you can raise one up. Because if you can get one that's like an inch long, again, if you're a beginner, I would start with something like what you see on the screen, which is a Grammostola porteri. If you can raise one of those up from an inch, and it's a slow burn, they grow very slow, but that gives you an opportunity to grow slowly with them. They're not going to grow so fast where you can't keep up with everything. They're not a dog or a cat where in a year's time they're just like, boom, it's like, wow, that was fast. With tarantulas, you get to slowly experience everything, and I love that about them, that you can really get such a wide, diverse range of tarantulas in your collection to observe and to document and experience, that it's almost a no-brainer. It's like, really the only thing that you're going to put up money for is that initial cost, and some of them can get expensive, but unlike a snake where you're paying a bunch of money for it, then you're going to be dumping tons of money in just to feed this animal. Feeding a tarantula is so inexpensive. It's like having a free animal around your house. That's all it is. And again, with all the questions that I could possibly answer, my biggest answer to you would be just get a tarantula on your own and talk to other people. Don't just take my word for all this. There are other people out there. Talk to them, watch their videos, interact with them, ask them questions, and do it with the right people. Don't do it with people who are impatient, who are going to take 6 months to respond to you, because that's not helping you. Find reliable people who are going to give you the correct information very quickly. I highly recommend you watch MaryLynn Moore's channel. She's a good friend of mine. Has beautiful tarantulas, and it is done in a way, in the way she speaks, I think it's perfect for a beginner to watch some of the diverse species. I always recommend her channel for beginners. Not that she's a beginner at all. She's not. She was actually one of the people I watched when I first started making YouTube videos. And of course, John 3800. Watch his videos, because his Mythbuster series is invaluable. If you want to know a lot about these animals, watch his Mythbuster series. And then get yourself the complete Tarantula Keeper's Guide, or any other book that you want to get that is informed, because there's nothing better than having a book at your disposal where you can just go to it quickly, look up the information, figure out what's going on, close the book, and get to the problem, if there is a problem, or whatever situation may arise. Because unfortunately, when you ask a YouTuber or you ask someone on Facebook, you might not get an immediate response, and that's not helping you. So I always recommend books. Books are good. Books that you hold in your hands are good. There's nothing wrong with a book. Now I sound like an old man in a rocking chair, but books are good, and you learn a lot, and it's good to just have that with you, and I would say, when you're watching these videos, don't just half-ass watch them. If you're really into them, take in all the information and write it down. That's what I did. I had a notebook full of everything. Every time I watched a video, I would be jotting stuff down. Like, this is what this person's stuff is. I take screenshots on my phone, or do whatever I had to do to build up a little library of what I expect from tarantula keeping, and what I'm not going to like about it. And is that a deal breaker? Because there are deal breakers there. A lot of people don't like the fact that a lot of them, you can't see them. They're going to barrel, and you might not ever see them. I have tarantulas I've seen twice in like the last 2 years. It's like they don't dirty up their enclosure enough for me to even really check. I know that they're eating because I'm throwing stuff down there and it's going, but I don't see them ever, and that's a drawback. But again, you can buy another tarantula that's going to be out in the open the whole time. So the one that's hiding is not such a big deal, because you have something else to look at. But that is going to do it for me on this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this answers a lot of people's questions on basically what you should do. Go get yourself a tarantula if you're interested, and if you don't think you're ready for it, keep researching, keep learning all you can about them. Talk to as many different people as you can. Check out channels like MaryLynn Moore and John 3800. I'll put links in the description below to those channels, and I also recommend them because they're going to communicate with you if you talk to them. So if you have questions to ask them, they're going to answer your questions. They're accessible people like me. Like, if someone asks me something, I'm going to try my best to get it to you as quickly as possible. But again, get yourself a book if you don't have one, just for that backup security in case you can't get on the internet one day and there's something going on and you want some immediate answers. So that'll do it for this one. I'll see you guys on the next Day or Night Exotics video. Take care.